Go ahead and get started. Welcome to our Lunch and Learn session this month. Thank you for recording that. We are having this session recorded, and so it will be up on our website, which is wkhscounselors.com. All of our past Lunch and Learns from this school year are also on there, the recordings of what we share with you. And we really just appreciate you guys joining us here. This is just one more way that we can provide outreach with our community and our parents. And we really enjoy you guys being here. So I'm going to go ahead. Oh, are you sharing your screen? I don't mind, Miss Abbott. Okay. Do you want me to share it?
Sorry, the bell was ringing. I don't think you have the choice to because I started the recording. That's what I was saying at the beginning. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Okay. You want me to share it then? All right. We'll share our screen and we will get started. Okay. So today we are talking about GPA. GPA, which stands for grade point average. So the GPA is that grade point average, and this is going to follow your student. They start to accumulate their GPA after the first semester of their freshman year. It is a calculation of all the grades averaged together on a 4-point uniform scale. The cumulative GPA is exactly what it sounds like. It does start at their freshman year, and that cumulative GPA is what builds with them all throughout when they graduate as seniors. It is calculated after each semester and not the quarter. So quarter one and quarter two are combined to provide that first semester GPA. And each grade a student earns, that grade is calculated according to a uniform scale so that a single number can be used to express the grades earned by a student. So this is just kind of a breakdown of how a semester GPA is calculated. So quarter grades, like I had said, they are not counted in that quarter grades are not counted into the GPA. It is the student's combination of first quarter and second quarter combined with the semester exam. That is how that first semester GPA is calculated. And then when we talk about second semester, it's quarter three and quarter four that are combined together with the 10% semester exam. So it's 45% of first quarter, 45% second quarter, 10% semester exam. And that is how you get a semester GPA calculation. I know that can kind of be confusing sometimes. And now that was the simple answer, but nothing is ever quite that easy or straightforward. So when we are talking about your semester GPA, Worthington classes and College Credit Plus classes are factored into your GPA. So on this screen, you'll see it says summer school. If a student has taken any course through TRECA or any other online course, that course counts for the credit. The student has earned that credit, but the grade does not get factored into the GPA. And that's the same if a student started, let's say they started at Dublin Scioto and went to Dublin Scioto their freshman and sophomore year, then transferred into Worthington Kilbourne for their junior and senior year. Their Dublin Scioto grades would not be factored into their Worthington Kilbourne GPA. It would show on their transcript, but it would not be factored into their GPA. So only the classes that are taken at Worthington and College Credit Plus classes are the grades that appear on the transcript and are factored into the GPA. Any other course, any online course, or any other course at another high school, it's not factored into the GPA, but does show up on the transcript.
And so when you're looking at that Worthington GPA, you might be wondering how it's calculated. And so this chart is really your best way to get an understanding of the big picture of how that GPA is calculated. So based upon the student's letter grade, or their percent in the class, they're going to have a GPA scale. So an A is worth a 4.0, a B is a 3.0, a C is a 2.0, and a D is a 1.0. An F, of course, does not get them credit. That will count as a 0 in their GPA. So when the calculations are made, it's using that letter grade to that scale. We're going to talk a little bit about the weighted grades. And so every weighted grade, and again, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, giving you a little bit of a preview of what to come, is calculated against a 1.25. So that 4 times 1.25, a 3 times 1.25, and that gives you that weighted GPA calculation, which is over on the right-hand side. And so we'll talk more about the weighted GPA in just a second. But know that this chart represents how their GPA is calculated based upon the grades that they earn in those classes. So when you okay, there we go. So when you look at how that GPA is calculated, when you're looking at that cumulative GPA or at the semester, it's going to take all of the points earned and all of the credits attempted. So you're going to take all of the addition of what all of those, an A is worth 4. It's going to add all of those points for the calculation together, as well as all of the credits that were attempted, and it's going to divide that. And that's how you would get your cumulative GPA. You'd also do that in just the smaller pool to see how that semester GPA would work. But again, the bigger point would be your cumulative GPA of calculating all of those credits together. So when you look at, this might be my semester grade, and if I'm a sophomore, I might be taking English 2, biology, math 2, US history, health, and band. And if my semester GPAs are a B+, an A, a C, an A-, an A, and an A+, one thing that you're noticing as you look at those points, the pluses and minuses don't count any different in Worthington. So we still give you credit if you got a B+, even though your B+ in English 2 might have been an 89%, and your A- in US history might have been a 90% or an 89.7% and rounded to that A-, you get a 4 in your GPA for an A-, you only get a 3 for a B+. And so that's really important to maximize as many of your classes to get to that next grade, because it will make a huge difference in GPA. And so when you were looking at a situation like this, you would add together the total number of points divided by the number of credits, and that would give a GPA. So in this case, it would be a 3.5. I started to talk a little bit about that weighted piece because I know that can be really confusing to people. So students who choose to challenge themselves with some of those more difficult classes, like your AP classes, your IB classes, or your College Credit Plus classes, all of those classes receive a weighted grades. And that weighted grade, again, is at a 1.25 scale. Sometimes students will think, oh, well, if I get a C in the class, it's the exact same as if I had a B. And it's not, because a C at a weighted scale is a 2.5. So while it's higher than a C of a regular, it's still not as high as a B in an unweighted class. And so when kids are trying to make those decisions, we want them to appropriately challenge themselves, but we still want them to be able to do well in those classes. Colleges aren't going to be blown away by a student who takes really hard classes and then gets all C's and D's in them just because they challenge themselves. It would be better to show the places, maybe pick and choose. I'm going to try and challenge myself in this one area, but I'm going to do other classes that, I'm just going to take the traditional normal college prep path in. Honors classes are not weighted, so that's one of the areas that are not weighted. The only classes that are weighted are those AP courses, your IB courses, and your College Credit Plus classes.
Sorry about that. So what is a student's GPA used for? So first and foremost, it's kind of that ranking system. It is what the schools are going to look at their academic performance and then rank that academic performance. A GPA is often regarded as kind of just an indication of strengths and abilities of the students within the high school setting. most often who is using that GPA are colleges for admissions purposes, different scholarships, certain high school awards are where the GPA is being looked at and often being referenced. I think what's kind of important to talk about in relation to GPA that we haven't quite mentioned is just that importance of really starting strong, that students really need to build that GPA beginning of freshman year. You as their parent guardian can find a student's GPA by going to their transcript on Infinite Campus. You can click reports and then transcript, and that's going to show you their GPA. There will be a way to see an unweighted GPA and also a weighted GPA. We'll just always use the weighted GPA for anything that we report to colleges or universities. So that's something that you should know. But then I think the next slide is what really, again, kind of brings home that starting strong. The better the grades, the better the GPA. I also think what students and families often don't realize is that importance of the freshman year. That freshman year builds the foundation for the GPA. And unfortunately, like I'm having a lot of conversations with juniors right now. They're sitting at that 2.7 and they think by the end of the year, they're getting to a 3.0, even though they've had a lot of A's and B's this year. That's just not the case. So starting strong, not having to dig yourself out of a hole is what we really are talking to our students about in regards to GPA, in regards to life in general. But it's very, very important that our students that are at that freshman level understand, I'm building my foundation for all 4 years of high school. The other thing that I think we've had a lot of conversation in regards to GPA is we will have students come in and saying, I'm going to sign up for this AP class. I'm going to sign up for this IB class. Well, they're doing it with just the purpose of boosting their GPA. And like Ms. Abbott was saying, when you have a C in an IB, an AP, or a College Credit Plus course, that's really not going to be purposeful for the purpose of a GPA. So we want our students that are challenging themselves with those more rigorous academic courses to do so with a purpose outside of just boosting the GPA. Because most oftentimes when that's the sole purpose, we don't see that really equating in their GPA in the way that the student or the family feels it might. And then the other thing that this is highlighting is just that importance of, if that student is sitting at that 88, 89%, they really want to be advocating for themselves, doing as much work as possible to get themselves to that A-, because that's a huge jump. I think sitting with students, talking to them about what that means, I think it's very, very essential and important that they understand that, because their pluses and minuses here in Worthington don't necessarily equate in the GPA. And it's very important that they see and do some advocating for themselves when they see that they're so close to that next grade letter. So we would love to take this opportunity to just kind of hear some of the questions that you guys might have in regards to GPA. We will go through those here in the chat box to see what those are for you. And we'll take time to answer, read them, make sure you have anything that's on your mind answered. And then we're also just going to highlight the next Lunch and Learn, which is May 10th on perfectionism. Unfortunately, that's a topic that a lot of our students and families deal with on a yearly basis, is perfectionism. And we want to give you guys some tools to help your students with that. So again, go ahead, take some time. We'll stay on here for a few minutes, look for those questions in the chat. We really genuinely appreciate you being here, and we're always here as a resource.
Stop my computer. Okay, it looks like my son is known to say things to me that class doesn't count. Okay, this one says, my son is known to say things to me that that class doesn't count in my GPA anyway. Example, French. Is that true? No, the French grades, all the foreign language classes that are taken here at Worthington Kilbourne High School are averaged into the GPA. So the grade absolutely is calculated into that GPA. The next question we had, which is a good one, does WKHS rank students? If so, is it based on GPA? So we will rank our students who have a 4.0 or above as a 1, but we always distinguish that it's 1 shared with 49 other students or 1 shared with 70 other students. We do not, because Worthington Kilbourne is such a high achieving school, if a student has a rank of 80, but they still have a GPA of 3.9, that's not an accurate snapshot of that student's academic ability. And so we choose not to share that information because it's not putting that person in the best light in terms of highlighting all of the things that they have done throughout their academic career. So we do report the ranking. If it's a 4 point or above, they would have a rank of 1. And then after that, if they have a 3.9, we do not report ranking.
And just to go back to the question, because these are great questions, so please keep adding them in, but back to the question about, oh, my son says these classes don't count into GPA. Mm-hmm. Every course that is taken in the school day at Kilbourne will count into their GPA. So whether it's their gym class, their health class, their global cuisines class, an art class, every single course is just as important as every other course in that overall GPA. So every class that they're taking here at Kilbourne is counting into their GPA.
The next question, Shannon, I'm not sure, 4.0 weighted or unweighted? Oh, if you're talking about class rank, it can be unweighted. But in unweighted, if it's a 4.2, it doesn't always mean that it's unweighted is a 4.0. But in terms of class rank, we will look at the weighted. I think that's what that question meant. Correct me if I'm wrong.
And I think too, just in general to parents, as you're talking to your son or daughter, remember that this is one number. It doesn't determine their value, their worth, their abilities, their potential. It's not that, but it is a factor that colleges will look at. And so it's one snapshot number, and it can be an important number, but it is not who they are. And it's not more important than who they are or the things that they're involved with or the type of person that they are. And so keeping that bigger perspective in mind is always beneficial, for everyone as parents and for us as educators too. But just knowing that this is one way that people will be looking at and evaluating you is that, back to what Mrs. Himmel was saying, trying to start strong and finish as strong as you can, because it just keeps more doors open for you in the future.
And yes, Shannon did right. If a student has a weighted GPA over 4.0, they are a class rank of 1. Yes, that is correct.
And there are times where, you may come across a scholarship or something that says, that they require an unweighted honors diploma. When kids are looking and applying for honors diploma, it's an unweighted GPA. They don't take a weighted GPA for that. So there are certain times where that weighted GPA versus unweighted GPA may come into play. But in general, like they were saying, for colleges, you're going to be looking at that weighted GPA.
The next question is, does the GPA accumulate across the years, or is each year a blank slate? It does accumulate. It's a cumulative GPA. So it starts their first semester of their freshman year and then ends when they graduate after second semester of their senior year.
And again, that's part of the reason that it's always so important that students are appropriately challenging themselves, taking on a load that's manageable. So if I, had a rough year one year, being able to make sure that the next year I'm making smart choices about how, what I'm doing with my classes so that I can set myself up for success is really an important piece.
These are all great questions. I mean, truly, please ask us. We are here for you and to answer any questions, because this is, if you're not breathing this or living this as your career, you don't know. It's been a long time since I personally was in high school. And so it can be very unclear and a lot of questions can arise.
And if you don't have any more questions, know that we are grateful for your time with us today. We always try to make sure we get this one topic to do something really fast with you so that you can join us during your lunch and then be able to move on. So if you don't have questions, that's okay too. But we're so grateful for your time and being here today.
So this concludes our presentation. If you want to hang out with us, we'll hang out on here for a little bit. But if not, if you think of a question over the weekend or next week, please always just reach out to your child's school counselor and we'll help answer any questions you may have. Thanks. We'll see you,
Thanks,
May 10th.
everybody.